Hey guys, welcome back. I am George, this is Elizabeth, and I am really excited today. Every week we kind of search for content, what we're interested in, what we want to tell you guys about, and this week Biz came to my desk and said, I want to talk about bronze. And I went, okay, what do you need from me? She's like, nothing, shut up, I'm going to teach you about bronze Panerai. So I am incredibly excited.
We're Panerai fans, we've been talking about Panerai for a long time. I came across a story that I actually didn't know about the Bronzo, so it'll be interesting to talk about it today. It's also rare that we have two bronze Panerais in store at the same time, so it all fell together.
Yeah, that's absolutely a fact. Just real quick, we have two of the bronze series. We have the green dial with the power reserve. I believe it's the 504, but this was the second generation of 47 millimeter Bronzo, and then leading up to a much more modern one, the 42 millimeter blue. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Having one of these in the store is a treat. Having both, kind of rare.
It's very cool. And if you're familiar with Panerai, you have probably seen the Bronzo. It's kind of the grail of Panerai collecting. For a very long time was very hard to find, but not everyone knows all the backstory to it, aside for kind of the naval and maritime ties. So let's go back to the 1980s. Panerai, not yet purchased by Richemont, still kind of a private producer. They're working very closely with the Italian Navy. They come out with a couple prototypes for the Italian Navy because the Navy needs a watch that can dive to 1,000 meters. So they come out with a series of prototypes. Some are in bronze and some are in titanium. And this goes on for a couple years. But what's cool about the prototype is I saw something online that said, it's ugly but useful.
Function over form.
Yeah, it's not
facts.
the sexiest watch, but this was a tool watch for real. They needed this as a tool. But what's cool about it is you can see the early days of Panerai in it. We've got the crown guard on the right-hand side. You know, kind of the shape coming together. And I think it's interesting in the Panerai story that it shows, okay, here's something very functional, and how do we make this into something really beautiful in the design?
Yeah, because that picture you showed me of the original prototype. I've never actually seen that before. I was in the boutique in Geneva a couple years back, and they have that little vintage kind of case, and there was maybe a titanium one. I don't recall it having a crown guard, but I was wrong once. It might have, but it was definitely titanium, and it was that same round, that same bezel, and that was the only time I've ever seen one. It just said a prototypo.
So that's kind of the beginning. The Navy didn't pick up the prototype, so now we're kind of getting into the late 1980s, and they didn't need it. This is when diving computers were starting to come out. The technology moved on, and I think that sort of shows where Panerai felt a little bit dead in the water at that point.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe losing that contract had something to do with them selling to Bonatti?
I do.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so then that kind of happened. They lose the contract. What are we going to do with this business? Not that long after, they're selling out and then acquired by what we know now, the Richemont brand. So kind of some interesting history there.
That is absolutely fascinating. I am so stoked to learn stuff. It's funny doing this as long as we have you think you know everything, and man, I still learn something here every single day. So that's awesome right off the bat.
So now we're gonna go forward a little bit. So now we're around 2005, and Mr. Bonatti, who's overseeing Panerai, is on vacation and comes across an old boat by William Fife.
Okay.
So if you're familiar, he is a world-renowned boat builder, I guess you will, kind of a world I'm not super familiar with. It's laying in the forest. The boat is just abandoned. And he's walking to dinner and he's like, hey, I recognize that design. What if we take this boat, we restore it, and it becomes an ambassador for Panerai? So now you know it as the Eilean. It took 3 years to bring it back to life, all kind of using original parts, the original look to it.
They did that special edition for it as well.
Recently, the Radiomir.
Yeah, which was just fabulous. That was one of the coolest watches of that year for sure.
And the boat's still around. You can see it in the Panerai Classic Yacht Challenge. They bring it out for some events and such. It's usually in Europe. So as Mr. Bonatti is on the boat, he looks around and says, oh, so many details are in bronze. Right, going back to kind of, and George was speaking of why that's the case?
Bronze has always, as long as there's been bronze around, it's been used in maritime passions. It is a hardy material that it patinas.
Yeah.
It develops, especially in salt and sea air, it develops this protective coating. So it won't rust, it won't corrode. It will change color, it will, again, get its own patina of use depending on what it's doing on the boat, but incredibly useful for maritime pursuits.
Yep. So Mr. Renati's looking at all the details. How cool would it be if we had a watch to celebrate the Eilean and to celebrate this happening? But kind of keep in mind, I think, you know, when Panerai launched it, it was a 47 millimeter bronze watch. Only 1,000 produced, very limited in its production. And bronze, it was kind of a love-hate material because you have this luxury watch they were selling for $10,000 that
at the
patinas.
Yeah.
And wears down. It was
Yeah.
kind of controversial going into it. I think I saw something from him that was like, I know this is cool, but how will it take?
Yeah, well, and I still have guys today who acquire these absolutely wonderfully patinaed pieces, and they'll bring them to see us and to service it, to have it polished or something. And I will absolutely try to talk you out of it. I'm a patina hound. I love it. I love it on cars, on motorcycles, on watches, because it shows the use of the piece. It shows the life of the watch, and I think that's absolutely fascinating.
Which we like, but back in the back then to have
controversial
for sure. And how is this going to take? Well, it was a smashing success.
Yeah.
They sold out before they even hit the floor. Every dealer wanted them. Everyone had them pre-sold.
Yep.
And then Mr. Renati is quoted to say, "It will never happen again."
Really?
This was a one-time deal. Just this 1,000 special edition.
Okay.
But we know it was such a big success that then they ended up doing it a couple years later with the piece we have in
this
front of us.
one here was also 1,000. I couldn't remember they did 1,000 or 1,500 on that
green
one.
dial before, kind of this, I don't want to call it military green, kind of a moss, darker
It's kind of an OD
color.
green, though. Yeah, you wouldn't be too far off. Yeah, for sure.
And then did it again. Now we have a power reserve. So they didn't change a ton. You know, it's got titanium on the back. Oftentimes with buckles, we get that question a lot. Why isn't there a bronze buckle? It can irritate the skin. But 1,000 again, and then it was done. And then they decided to do it again.
And then they decided to do it again. Yep. That was the blue. That was 2016.
Yep.
That was also the introduction of the new movement. So a little bit thinner than the previous two.
Okay.
This is stuff I do know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the blue dial, and that one might have been 1,500.
Okay.
If I'm
know the
wrong,
production on that.
comment below, because you know I know you guys love it when I'm wrong. And that might have been my favorite.
Blue.
That was one so for those of you who don't know too, the Bronzo watches are, I don't want to make the comparison, but it's kind of like Panerai's Daytona, where you're not going to be able to walk in and buy one. They have to know you. You have to be a good client. You have to have bought other things. There's a ladder to it all. Every once in a while, you hear this anecdotal story of like right time, right place, and I got one, but incredibly rare. The blue was when I had started working here.
Okay.
So that was the first Bronzo to come out when I was working for anything Panerai. And one came in, and I remember your dad, Oliver, the owner, putting it aside, just being so stoked. And we had just a guy, and he was finally getting his, and I got to see him come in. I got to share that moment with him, and it was really, really important, very, very cool. So that one's always kind of stuck out in my head.
So those were kind of the three, I would say, special editions, previous releases.
Yeah.
More recently, in 2019, we finally got another one. This was a brown dial with a brown ceramic bezel, the Bronzo. And then 2021, which was really exciting, we got the blue dial, but in a 42 millimeter. It had always been in a 47 millimeter.
Which kind of opened it up for a bunch of guys, too, who the 47 is frankly just too big.
Especially with bronze, it's heavy.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'll go back, that original prototype was 48 millimeters.
That's amazing.
It was kind of following that.
So more of an Egiziano kind of a size with the round. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then currently today, we were just talking, off screen, Panerai decided to make a Radiomir Bronzo.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most impossible watch to get, I would say, out of the bronze series, unless you're going into, the older pieces.
Yeah, like everything else, I can help you plot the road. I can say if this, then that. This one seems to be tied to very, very private events with Panerai themselves, and it is a 47 millimeter Radiomir, so kind of that vintage piece, and it's stunning.
Yeah,
it's
green
so
dial.
it's so good. We had a gentleman who was in a position to get one, and he wore it in to show me, and it was an outstanding watch. Bravo on that. I wish I could help, and maybe in the future I'll be able to. I don't know. This one's been kind of a mystery to us.
It's been hard. And thinking about it, it's almost like Panerai kind of held the green dial for the Bronzos.
Yeah.
For so long,
Yep.
because we only recently got introduced green dials again, and
Again,
before it
yeah,
was just the original two. So there's some backstory that you don't
I
always
absolutely
know,
love
but
it.
it was really meant to be.
Yep,
Panerai and the
Elizabeth,
bronze.
thank you so much for educating me on the history of bronze and telling me something I didn't know. I absolutely love that. If y'all like this content, please like and subscribe. If you are traveling, please hit us up. We are in 2 stores in Scottsdale now, Flagship and Fashion Square. And if you are fortunate enough to be in Aspen, please stop by and say hi to Emery. They'd love to see you.